Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very quick introduction into how to sculpt shoes digitally with subdivision surface modeling in Blender. So here we have a very simple shoe from Mero. This one is ideal as a beginner project. The fabric part is rather simple, it's not too much work, so it's ideal to learn the basic steps. The sole is a little bit more complex, but there are certain workarounds how we could easily build this. I will simplify certain steps because I want to keep this video to be rather brief. So what would be the first step? Our first step is, well, how to create, for example, the sole. So in the bottom view, I can create a big object, and I will make this object for the moment shade as a wire so I can see through it. Then I can make this one as big as I need, and then with Control R we can add some loop cuts. Now the amount of loop cuts I put in really is based on experience, and every shoe or model might be different. Then I will apply the projection of the cage so that I see exactly the end result, and then I can start and, for example, push and pull the different vertices to get kind of like the shape I'm looking for. And there as well, here as well, there, and this one maybe to there, and there, and there, a little bit in, maybe a little bit further. In certain areas you need the loop cuts to be closer to each other. In certain other areas you need them to be further apart. And I would say we're very close to having redrafted that sole shape. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so what would be the next step? Well, the problem we have here currently is that our sole is not flat, so we can try this one out. I will just duplicate this object, keep it the same position, and then I will move all these points, for example, up. Actually, hold on. That should all go down to there. And maybe here a little bit up and a little bit down. So you see I try to hit kind of like this edge. Okay, and then from the top view, bottom view, then I can actually move these points out. Also here for the moment, this is set to wire. Okay, good. Okay, where are the other points? There and there. Maybe a little bit in. This can go out a little bit in there. See, the 3D model, actually, the scan is very helpful to understand where things somewhat maybe have to be. So the main reason why I followed this process, I can move everything onto the third layer, is simply I can, for example, select this and then press E and extrude this one up a little bit. And then let's actually add a loop cut. Oh no, what? We don't add a loop cut. We simply open the bottom part. So I have sharper edges, And I will do the same here for the moment as well. So I just basically only have the side surface. Okay, so that actually doesn't look too bad. So everything here at the bottom, I can press E and extrude maybe one tick a little bit down. And then in my case here, you see I have to move this one inwards a little bit. And the front, it gets tighter, so I move this a little bit up. And then actually I have to see these faces. I press E, escape, S and Z to 0, and then maybe to the 3D cursor, switching to the 3D cursor. Widget, S, Z, and 0, move it down. Okay. And there you see now I can try to match this to my original profile I had there. Scale those together. Maybe this I can fill. And then hue, and hue I can fill. So I have to start seeing how I can actually skin these parts. And one more, and one more, and one more. Okay, close. Maybe at this point it might be good to see this one as shaded. So here you see I run into problem number 1. Maybe my loop cuts are not sufficient to fully recapture actually the shape. So down here maybe I can add another loop cut if I want to sharpen that part. And you see now I'm actually getting closer to that. This one maybe can be moved in, move into there, move into there. And then it would be a question of nicely smoothing these parts out so they look good. Okay, that does the job. Shade a little bit. I think this part here has to go in a little bit more. Yeah, this one has to go to there a little bit. Maybe a little bit inwards. Yeah, okay. There's also a small crease along this line. So we can do this by not this loop cut, but by this loop cut. There, now you see that. Okay. So that, for example, is a quick intro into how we could build this shoe. What this, the sole. What the sole does not have is actually, it doesn't arc down. So what we can do in that case is we can create a center loop cut. And then with the center loop cut, we can select these points and, for example, push them down. And in this way you can see we can dome actually that part. The only problem is when we add this center loop cut, you see the front and the back actually start changing their shape because there's more geometry, so it gets straighter. So try to plan this ahead. I will remove this for the moment because I want to work with less points, so I can easily sculpt this detail in later. Okay, good. So step 2, how do we do the fabric? Actually, before we do the fabric, we should actually close maybe the sole material. And you see now this gets very round and soft. Blah, not what we want, not a big deal. We simply select this loop cut and then we crease it. So we push it back to be sharp. And then let's turn this on. Okay, goody. We can actually also even do the same with down here. we added actually this one extra loop cut to tighten it. We can also do it this way. Okay, to the next part, the fabric. So the fabric is actually quite simple. You just have to be smart in how you build it. So what we see here is a small front tip. Then there's this major big body, and then there is a small inlay, and then there is this back support. And you also can see here that the fabric comes around and then tucks under it. So I would like to build it somewhat the same way. Also, the fabric is not flush, for example, with the sole. It's a little bit offset. So what I will do is I will actually make a copy of this. Shift D, Escape P to separate. And let's go back to this part. And let's remove this. And I would like this to shrink a little bit. We can do a small offset. So I press, with everything selected, all these faces, I press I to make a small insert, and hold on, let's turn this one off so I can get a good representation of how far the insert goes in. Maybe like this. Okay. Control I to select the rest, delete the faces. Let's take a look, and there you see we have a nice offset. Perfect. So all this we can select. E, Escape, Z, move it up, delete these faces, and also here we delete these faces. There. See, this actually gets already pretty close. So now we can, in the next step, try to adjust the upper edge. This is really important from my point of view, to do this first before we do any other fine detailing. Maybe bring this one down to there. Okay, so let's take a look at how parts are closed and open. So this we can close, and probably this we can close. Okay, and then this one goes in. Here in the back actually it pinches. And there, and maybe we can move this one to there. Go in and go in, go a little bit back out. There and there. Okay, not too bad. This maybe can go up a little bit. This can maybe, let's see how this looks, maybe a little bit to there. Okay, so this maybe can go up. This maybe a tick down. Okay, let's take a look. Not too bad, it just looks too simplistic. Now you see it's way too straight. That's the reason why now we can create another loop cut, because now with this additional loop cut we can start crafting our curvature out. And in this case, what I like, if for example you work with a 3D scan, I just go into cut sections so I can better see maybe where my surfaces should be. Also here, this one can go in a little bit more. There and there. Okay. Let's see. How about this one? We can pull this one out. Can pull this one in a little bit. What's going on here? Oh, so it's pretty close actually to it. Okay, good. This one can come out, tick there. Also, those can come out. Let's take a look. And you see it starts getting more the shape we're looking for. Because essentially when we put our foot into the shoe, it will bend the fabric a little bit out. Okay, this area maybe is a little bit too sharp. So we can scale this one in a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And there, and there. Perfect. So let's leave this step actually there for the moment. So this is not too bad. Let's assume this is correct. Now the question is, well, how do we continue? How do we get the other fabric details on? So with other details, for example, I mean maybe this stitch part and for example this back area. And as it looks, as you can see, this piece has its edge here, so this area is this part. So that's actually not very difficult to do, and there we can make use of our shrink wrap modifier. So I will create a plane there, scale it down, R, Y, and 90. And then maybe bring this one down a little bit to there. And for the moment, I will hide my shoe part there. Okay, and let's take a look there. Let's rotate this, maybe bring it out a little bit. Okay, good. And also here again, let's shade this as a wire so I can better see it. One loop cut there, and then let's try to bring this one in. Now this will be a little bit modeling work. So from this view, 1, 2, and 3, there and there. This one maybe to there, this one maybe to there, this one maybe to there and there. Just have to fan those out a little bit. Okay, and then also from here, let's move those out to there and there. Try to do this step, or rather coarse. Try not to be too precise, because the moment we add the subdivision, this actually will get softer again. So there and there. Whoops. E and E and E. And then this one here, bring back to there, there, and maybe there. And then also we have to move these parts out. Whoa, what happens there? You should belong to there. And there. Okay, good. So let's maybe hide this and let's show our other part. So now we create a smooth version. So we add a subdivision surface modifier. Okay. So then there, if we want, we can push and pull these points a little bit more. It might make sense to have one center point as well. So for example, this has to belly out a little bit. This can maybe go in, this has to go out. Yeah, these can go out a little bit. Okay, so you want this to be a little bit, let's say, above the surface. Because now what we will do is shrink wrap, project onto this part. And you see now it should perfectly sit on it. If everything goes correct, we do positive and negative. So in case our fabric piece here in blue penetrates the shoe surface, it actually will rest on top of it. So we can turn this one back into solid. Now we don't really see it. So let's give it a solidify thickness, 1 centimeter too big, a millimeter maybe, so we can see it. Shade smooth. Let's add an edge split to crispen up the edges. Ta-da! And then we have this stuff down here. So how do we fix this? First, let's see how far this maybe matches. That's a nice thing now because it actually shrink wraps onto my part. I can just simply gently move these points up and down, and then I will know that actually it will follow my shoe body, so it will always rest on it. I can, if I want, select all the outer points, and then I think when we crease it, yep, it gets sharp there. That fixes, for example, that issue. So, and then in this case, we can bring this one down. Maybe in this case, we should actually make sure that this stuff is on the surface. We're running into some issues there. We can fix in a second later. There. And there. So this loop cut in the center really helps building this arc. AA, Control N. I think this is a little bit too deep. This is also too far away. So even here, try to get these points as close as possible to your mesh, and then any irregularity we will later then fix with the shrink wrap anyway. Okay, hold on. Something went wrong here. I want to check something. So, okay, and okay. Good. AA, Control N, so it sits on it. Okay, good. Perfect. Maybe move this down, move this down. So maybe this one I tick up. Okay. And then you there. Perfecto. Nice. Now you can move around and take a look at how the flows are. For example, how are these arcs? Currently, the different materials are hard to see, so I will just give this one a basic material so it's white and it's easier to see that part. Now here we have a nice arc. Yep, that's all good. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Maybe how could we do this part? So that's actually a piece that's internal. So now I'm actually curious if this is going to work out, because we project this onto, no, this we project onto this flat surface. It has no thickness yet. If we give this a thickness of 1 millimeter, will the projection still work? Yeah, it does. Perfect. It sits on the surface. It doesn't flip to the other side. Okay, great. That's good, because as you can see now, we have a material thickness. So let's go to this view. And I have to change my fabric design now. Ah, shoot. So how do I do this? Let me see. This for the moment I have to open. And maybe this can go to there. This can go to there because this has to pinch and pinch, pinch. Yeah, maybe this can go and go. Yeah, so what about we add the loop cut there, and I can just de-stress everything a little bit. Just might then have to adjust this part and this part. This and this, they have to go up and down and down. Yeah. Okay, so you see, like I try to get the amount of geometry I needed to make kind of like this V shape. So that actually, as a quick tryout, worked out quite well. I want to take a look at my sole, because I might have to push these parts back a little bit there and there. There. Okay, so it fits actually, or it flows more my sole design. Okay, good. So how do I cap this area? Not really difficult. So we're going to top view. I will add another plane, make it really small, a little bit wider or taller than needed. There. So the thing roughly sits here. I think we can move this one in, maybe a loop cut, 2 loop cuts there, and oh, whoops, wrong layer, M and 3 there. So this will be a little bit of a task now. So there are different strategies. I can actually try to match, for example, the outline as closely as possible. And there, and there, and there, and there. Maybe I will move, whoa, what did I do? I will remove one loop cut, and then this one I move to there. Yeah, there. And maybe here add one, yeah, okay. And then also here, select those, crease it. Okay. Oh, did I not crease all edges? I did. Okay, so how do I get the rest up? Shrink wrap. And shrink wrap there, project onto this part. But I will actually move it to there. And you might ask yourself, why did I do this? So I simply connect the basic points, and now I can move the rest, and for example move this one up a little bit and up a little bit. So I would have to kind of, like I was just trying to see, match this curvature a little bit, but this seems not to work out as desired. So I will have one subdivision first, maybe 2. Yeah, these points go up, and then add another subdivision afterwards. Yikes, this is not really working out. So I was hoping this could do it, but obviously it does not. So let's see what else maybe I could do. Actually, let's keep this one. I'm curious if maybe Shift D, P to separate. Nope, wrong one. And then skin this. Yeah. Apply. So apply. I have now a denser mesh. And you see the main reason why I did this was now I can move these points. And they were actually based on that original outline. So you see where they roughly sit. This point maybe a tick down. Okay. Let's solidify this again. So this goes up, which means those have to go down a tick. So I try to line it up with this edge. Yeah. Solidify there. Okay. I mean, sure. Subdivision surface, and then our solidify, and then this here we all sharpen, Shift E and 1, and this can actually go the opposite direction because it's inside. Okay, and then it pretty much looks the same way as like an inlay. And then if I want, I can dome this out a little bit. Maybe this a tick lower, this maybe a tick more. Okay, there. Yeah, that can do it. That looks quite representational. Keep in mind, this is not something that would go into injection molding. So we can simply trick around or fake around as much as possible, because ideally at the end all we do is just communicate an idea, and then in the padding department that would follow their own internal process anyway how to make that shoe. So it's not a big problem that this is more really kind of like a three-dimensional sketch. This is not a manufacturing model. Yeah, okay, so let's take a look. I would say we somewhat got close to most of what I wanted to show. Here's kind of like this interesting arc. So let's see maybe how we could build this arc. We could either copy something that's existing. Let's see if this, for example, works out. So we separate it. And 3. The solidify we do later. Also here we squeeze a shrink wrap in between onto this part. Project positive and negative. And then solidify, but probably the other direction. And we have to sharpen also here the edges. Let's see how this works. There it works. There it does not. Well, as you can see, these points are a little bit off. Again, what I will try to do here is get those maybe in a position so it looks they're nice and close. So it's hugging it more. Because the closer a path follows actually the mesh, the easier for the shrink wrap command it will be to do it. But I don't really have enough points. This gets a little bit crazy here. So Shift E -1. And what I will do for the moment is the following. So this point, move out. Yeah, I will apply this with a level of 1, so I have more points to sculpt. And then this I can move and move. Can add a subdivision now anyway before the shrink wrap. But you see, that's the main point why I said try to work with the least amount of points as possible, so we have less work. So let's see what happens here. Shift E and 1. Yeah, I don't really like this area. This is going to be a little bit tricky. And this also has to be there. So let's hide the sole for a moment. Let's give this one material so we can better see it, and then we can try to iron this out a tick. So I can, as you see, use the shrink wrap. I can also do something different. I can select all this, then I go to snap to face, multiple points at once, and then currently it's G, so I press the x-axis, I press G and Control, and they snap to it. G and Control, G and Control, G and Control, and also here G and Control, and then ooh, all these points are snapped directly onto it. So I also can turn this one on, and then even here move these points, and I all the time snap actually on that face. You see, I move these points directly on that face. So why would I do that? Well, the main thing is I don't have to be concerned about hitting the correct height. I can simply sculpt this shape as much as I want. And then the snapping command repositions the points, kind of like in a way I want it to be. So it's similar to the shrink wrap, but as we can see, it seems to be there are some issues. So let's turn this one off. Yeah, so I think like it snapped actually. Did it snap only to that surface? Yeah, it did. Okay, Control N. Let's do a solidify so it sticks out. We can, for example, sink this mesh a little bit in, so it penetrates it internally, but it doesn't really matter because all I'm looking for is having this little groove here on top. And you see I still also have that shrink wrap command running at the same time. So this is kind of like the shrink wrap command projects the end result, and this snapping command actually moves this current vertex to the mesh. It really positions it on it. So I like to work with that in tandem because the subd makes everything nice and soft, and then the shrink wrap puts this denser mesh back over that surface. But here we get a small issue. So that was the reason. I see. Yeah, so I was actually expecting this problem here before, and it didn't really do that yet. So let's see what we can do, or why this happens. See, it snaps actually to each side. So there's a little trick we can do. So this is our render object. Alt D, we make a clone. The clone we put to a different layer. Here we just turn the solidify off. This will be our project target, because for the software it is very difficult to understand when I say project onto the surface, well, which side of the surface it should select. So we can simply make it easy by making a clone. There, done. And then maybe even these steps out a little bit. There, okay. What happens if we add a loop cut? There, it gets a little bit tighter, for example. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. This doesn't actually sit. Well, good. We can use this for another exercise, how to fix stuff. Oh, be careful that this one is not on. So these points I move down and this I move down. So you see actually that the fabric penetrates kind of like my soul model, and that it has the following advantage. Now I can select all this, move this one down, there and there, and there, and there. And you see I can move it into the sole, so kind of like in this area it looks like the sole and the fabric are nicely glued over each other, so you do not, for example, see this gap. So I would have to move this one a little bit lower. Okay, I would say for part one, this is a good overview, how to sculpt the sole and then how to build the different fabric parts. Let's say you would like to build a strap, not a strap, yeah, a strap over it, so your kind of like your foot doesn't slide out. So it would be the same process with here, and then we can just then build it. But then I would not use actually the solidify modifier. I would at the start simply use the snapping command. So let's do something very quick. RX and 90. Let's rotate this whole part, let's say to there, move it up. This is definitely too wide. There, and then I move this one out a little bit. There. And E there. Maybe another R and an R. Shift D. Let's move this one over there. And these, for example, we bridge. Maybe another loop cut. Okay, and then I would go into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I will turn this one off for the moment. G and then Control. You see it. Oh, why didn't it snap? Oh, okay. I have this one turned on, so I don't have to hold Control. Zip, 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 and zip. Other side and G. Maybe move this down a little bit, so be careful that it doesn't snap to the other side. Okay, and then I can turn this one off and, for example, bring this one over. Maybe at this point here, this is not glued onto it anymore if you want to, so then dislocate it, move it over there and there. So we have to add a solidify modifier. Okay, so you see now this is a little bit further out. So I think I need simply more geometry points there. Yeah, that gets closer. So the same, for example, here. So ta-da, 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 ta-da. Okay, so we can turn off the permanent snap and then go ahead and sculpt everything a little bit more freedomly. I don't even know if that was proper English. Let's shade it. Oh, there are some artifacts. AA, Control N. And if we want, let's see, this should actually in this case work. Shift E and 1, so we sharpen it and shrink wrap onto, nope, not this part, we use the target and project. And if we want, we can actually only select these points, then we go to vertex, make this group, we call this one project, so we know what group it is, assign the vertices, select, okay, and project. So this way you see only the selected points actually will be projected onto that mesh, which is more what we want. Project, yeah. Okay. I think maybe we need something there. I don't really have like a reference object here right now to observe maybe how the strap could be or look like, but I think this is pretty close the way how maybe the material would flow. Yeah, and then we can add our subdivision surface modifier 1 millimeter to the other side and add an edge split there. And we're done with this lecture.